Well, here I am at a place that's called the Shepherd's Fields. I know it doesn't look like a field here, but this is actually one of the limestone caves where the shepherds would sleep out at night. They would keep their animals in here, and the shepherds would actually sleep literally in the cave doorway. They would be the gate to the sheepfold. Now, it's actually in these fields at a place called Bethlehem, which means the house of those who are awake when others are asleep, that the angels appeared to the shepherds. Now, I don't know how you imagine that very first Christmas story, but the truth is this: we imagine the shepherds as a bunch of 40-year-old guys with beards, that they are kind of good guys, they turn up. But in the ancient world, particularly in Israel, the shepherd's role was seen as the lowest of the low. It was a demeaned and lowly job. In fact, they weren't trusted at all. If shepherds came into town selling milk or kids or wool, normally it was stolen from the flocks that they themselves were meant to be looking after. And the amazing thing is, it's only a couple of miles from here to Jerusalem. The Jewish oral tradition tells us that all of the fields between here and Jerusalem were given over to the raising of the flocks, of the animals, of the sheep that would be used in temple sacrifices. So if you think about that for a moment, the temple had a huge demand for animals. And so when we think about the shepherds that were here at Bethlehem, literally they were the guys who were raising the sacrifices that would be used in the temple sacrifice system. So when we think about the shepherds, their job was a very important one, because not only did they raise those sheep, but they actually were the first line of defense, as it were, in checking that these sheep were ready, were fit, were spotless for use in the temple. And obviously it was the priests and the religious leaders in Jerusalem who liked to make a bit of money on the side, and so would have pre-approved sacrifices, so people didn't have to turn up and risk the animals that they'd bought from across the country to be sacrificed. Actually, sorry, no, this is blemish. Sorry, no, you can't use that. And so when we think of those shepherds, when we think about that whole thing of them being the first line of approval, as it were, when those shepherds turned up just after the birth of Jesus, we so often think they were coming to visit a baby, but the truth is much more profound than that. They were actually coming to inspect a sacrifice.